Active Living. We have our traveling guy here today. Here's Jim Roback, and Jim's been taking another trip around the world. This time he's gone to Laos. So Jim, tell us about why in the world would anybody want to go to Laos?
Well, that's an interesting question, George. Well, it really came down to the fact it's an unescorted tour versus the ones that all have been escorted. The reason for going there was to see the village where my traveling partner came from when she came over as a 5-year-old as a refugee, and to see where she was born, to see where the village looked like today, and then to visit a wedding where we spent about 3 days.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
So she was a refugee from Laos?
Correct. She came when she was 5 years old, came to Utah, and from there they went to California, and that's where she resides today.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, interesting.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's amazing how they got from a refugee all the way from the poor country of Laos into Thailand, and Thailand to the United States. And it was sponsored by people in the United States, which was great.
So you basically traveled all over the world with this refugee.
Yes, I
right?
have. So
she documented, Jim?
Pardon?
Is she documented?
Yeah, she is.
Oh, she is, okay. I just want to make
citizen.
sure that you're not traveling around with somebody that's
some
undocumented
illegal
here.
alien, right? No, she is. Was in the military. She was I think she was a sergeant or a captain. I'm not sure which, but she served in our military already also.
Okay, cool. Now listen, so Laos, what in the world, what's there?
What's there? Well, again, the reason for going there was to visit the village where she was born and go to his weddings, and then do some trips within Laos, because it's a country we haven't seen before. And to give you a little perspective of the country itself, it's a country of about 7 million people. It's very rugged. They got about 4 or 5 major cities, like, for example, Luang Prabang, which has about 400,000 people. Vientiane, which is the capital, has about 350,000 people. Odom Sai has about 250,000. And Lan Namtar, where we ended up our trip, was 145,000. So about 85% of the people within Laos live in the rural areas. There's not very many big cities. So the roads are pretty rugged there. They're backward. They're dusty. They're all getting better, but it's kind of an interesting country, but very beautiful from a standpoint of visiting it.
You travel by car, or do you travel by,
that was it.
by donkey?
We traveled by van, went from the village to Maan Singh, and then we hired another van to take us all the way to Luang Prabang, which cost like $100 a day. So it was pretty good. So a couple of things there regarding the language itself. When you say hello, you say Sai Bai Di, which is hello. And then thank you is Kap Chai. And then if you're in Thailand, you say Lansing, like the capital, like Lansing.
Really?
That is thank you, yeah. And the words, like, for example, 1 through 5 is Nuang, Song, Sam, Si, Ha, which is 1 through 5. Okay. And the country has about 49 ethnic groups, and from the 49 ethnic groups that live in Laos, there are like 230 distinctive entities within the country. So it's very diverse, and so many tribes there. It's amazing. And
does the language vary between tribes?
Somewhat, yeah, right.
Something like between Boston and South Carolina?
Probably worse than that. I mean, there's a lot of different dialects there that you have to deal with, but they seem to be able to do the conversation very well.
Okay.
The money that they have here is this. This is the kip. It's about 8,000 kip to the dollar. So when I converted about $150, I was a millionaire. I had over $1 million kip there, but once again, they're only 8,000 to the dollar. So it went a long way as far as that's concerned. Pretty money. They have no coins. It's all paper money.
Is the price of goods over there fairly cheap?
Very
compared to the
expensive.
United States?
Yes, very expensive. In fact, when we had breakfast or we had lunch, I could feed 7 people for less than $10.
Really?
And
wow.
And the biggest thing that we had mostly was they call a soup, which they call kai soy. Kai soy? Yeah, cow soy. And this is a soup we had every day.
Okay.
And this is where I lost basically 7 pounds, because there was hardly any meat available. So it was basically eating soup most of the time. It has vegetables and noodles and maybe a little bit of meat in there that's sprinkled there, and heavily with spices in that. So it was a little spicy, so it was pretty good. And then the beer was pretty good. It's called Beer Lao, and you can buy that for $1 also. Really? And it was about a 22-ounce bottle, so it was pretty decent. It was good beer. You have to say Beer Lao, so that was pretty good there. So I guess to start off, we went through the 30 hours to get to Chiang Rai. We got there like 8 o'clock at night. Went to a hotel. The next morning, we had our people pick us up, and they took us to the border. And we crossed the border into Laos, in which it cost you $30 to cross the border. And
now, what country did you land in?
In Thailand. We went to Bangkok, to Chiang Rai, and then they took us by van to the border.
Okay.
And from the border crossing, which is Chiang Kong, which is on the Thailand side, and Husay is on the Laos side.
Okay.
And like I said, it cost us $30 to get through for our visa, and from there, then he took us to the village. It was another hour and a half. you got to go through banana plantations about 8 or 9 miles back into banana plantation.
Really?
It's very rugged and very dusty, the roads. That's where we spent basically 3 days for the wedding. And the most highlight of the wedding, two major
Wedding,
highlights.
now who's getting married here?
Some relatives of
Okay.
Samantha's mother. And in fact, she was the head cook. She went a week early to do all the cooking.
Really?
That was going to transpire for the 300-odd some people that came to the wedding.
300.
Oh yeah, the whole village is actually invited, and they come and they drop these little invitations in a box there. And as they pass through the waiting line where the bride and groom, they're all dressed in the regalia of the wedding.
Okay.
And they give each woman a flower they put on her, and then the men get a shot of Johnny Walker Scotch and a cigarette. I have no significance to why they got a cigarette, but each one got a cigarette.
Is that right?
And then they would give them money, they put them in a salt bowl there, and they'd put it away. I guess that's what was done.
Wow.
So that was kind of neat there. And they had to sit there like for 4 hours to take all these people that came from the village. And they came through an arch. It was pretty neat. And then the most interesting thing was to go up to the top of the hill. I was invited by the village people to go to the top of the hill to show me what was going on there. So what they basically did, they went to get some pigs for the wedding. So they go in the pen, they lasso the pig, they drag him out, and they tie him up, the front feet and the back feet, and then cover his snoot with the rope, and then they weigh him, they take him down to the village. And this is where it gets real gory, where they actually have the pig on the cart. And what they do, basically, a guy comes over with a machete and he sticks the pig right in the throat here, and the blood is spurting out, and the women are catching the blood to use in the food.
Now this is all taking place at a wedding?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
now this was done like the day before to get the food prepared, and so it was. And I think they killed like supposedly 7 pigs for this wedding, so there's a lot of people that come.
Oh.
So they cook the food, you know, and actually after they stab the pig and kill it, then they have to take all the hair off with a machete. They have to take hot water, and the guys are continuously pouring hot water, and then these people with machetes were taking the hair off.
Right.
Then after that they gut it, you know, and do all the cutting up, and then they cook it. So kind of interesting anyways.
Do they cook it in like
big
over
pots.
an open fire or in
yeah,
pots?
it's open fire in pig pots in the kitchen there. The kitchen is kind of a dirt floor, and this is where they cook it. So it's kind of interesting. But so then they lay all this food on the tables for the people to eat in little bowls there, and I couldn't eat most of it because the flies are just so tremendous there. There's so many of them there. So didn't take a chance. So I ate a little bit of sticky rice and things of that nature. But if the food came out real hot and was covered, then I would eat a little bit of it. But it wasn't too palatable, let's put it that way. So after leaving the wedding, we went to the area that we're supposedly, that my traveling partner Samantha was born, to what they call the area of Maan Singh, which is the northern part of Laos.
Right.
And there's 16 tribes there, and they took us to where she was born, and it was nothing more today than a rice field. Everything is gone after 30-some years. That it's strictly a rice paddy now.
Now, is this the first time that she's been back?
Yes, the first time she's back.
Since she was 5 years old,
yes,
basically,
since she was
right?
5 years old, correct. And her mother took her and found the village where it was at, but no buildings, no nothing anymore. It's all gone. Just rice paddies, and people are already harvesting the rice out there, taking them from the fields and putting them in the trucks. They're in about 60-pound bags, and they're loading the trucks coming out of there. The neat thing about that, and visiting the villages, they have these Maan people that are dressed in traditional costumes. They're really nice, and these ladies sit around and sew all day long, and they get about $1 a day for sewing these beautiful artifacts, and they would sell them to, I guess, people who distribute in the United States. I'm not sure where they go, but they only make $1 a day, and they sit there all day just sewing. It's a tremendous amount of work that they do, and so the people were very friendly there. We didn't stay in the village as far as sleeping. We did in the village where we went to the wedding, but we stayed at a hotel there in Maan Singh. It was $7 a night.
Wow.
That's all it was. It was pretty neat. It was too bad, you know, a nice hot shower, which was kind of neat, so that was interesting there. And the unique thing about that, every village you go to, they have this commerce that goes on, which is from 7 till 8 o'clock in the morning. You sell all these vegetables, any kind of fresh fish you want, clams, anything you want. Everybody goes to the village to buy the food because there's no refrigeration.
Right.
So you buy it very inexpensive. We bought probably, we bought $8 worth of clams, which we probably got over 100 clams, you know. And then the ladies that we had in our group, they cooked the food back at the hotel, at the $7 hotel. The people allowed us to use their kitchen to cook it.
Wow.
So it was kind of neat. So they made the whole dinner for us that one night there. They had the clams and other things that we ate. So it was kind of neat. So that was pretty good. But every place we went to in the village, they would serve us food. Every place we went, you got to have food. You got to have food, you know. So
right.
So I'm tired of sticky rice and all this food there. So we ate a little bit at each place. But it seems like they never do any work, but they always have parties going on. So I don't know. So it's kind of interesting anyway.
But you lost 7 pounds over.
Lost 7 pounds over those days there. So that was kind of neat there. So after we left that village, we hired a driver when we got to Namtar, and he took us to the city of Luang Prabang. So It was $100 a day, plus we paid his hotel and his food, basically. So we used
Okay.
him to take us everywhere. And again, the roads are a little bit rough. To get to Odamsai, we had to cross a mountain pass, which took us about 2.5 hours for 50
Really?
miles. Pretty well under construction.
For 15 miles?
50 miles.
Oh, 50 miles.
50
okay.
miles took about 2.5 hours, and you go
Okay.
and do about 15 or 20 miles an hour. That's it,
Right.
because of all the construction and winding, dirty, dusty roads. You know, so it was not paved, so it was pretty backwards. Let's put it that way. But they're doing a lot of work to improve the road system in Laos right today. So Odamsai was a good area. It was small town, and we stayed there for the night. I think that was the one that was most expensive hotel. It was $20 a night. So
Oh, really?
yeah, it was $20. That was the most expensive, but it was much nicer than the other hotels. Finally, getting to the town, we stayed there for one night. Then the next day, we went to Luang Prabang there, which is another large city that I mentioned earlier. It's about 250,000 people. It became a UNESCO site in 1995.
Well, that's a pretty good sized city, though.
It is a pretty good sized city. and it's-
250,000?
Yeah, it was pretty
Okay.
good. There's a lot of commerce there, and it was a pretty nice city there. It's pretty clean, a lot of things to see, which we'll go through. Basically, they have beautiful areas to see as far as the scenery, the mountainside, and everything else. It was really neat. So in the town itself, it has like 34 Buddhist temples.
Okay.
So there's a lot of temples to see. And along with that, so we did that on the second day. We visited the major temple there, which we'll see a picture on the background in the next segment here. But going to all these temples was amazing. There's so much Buddhist statues in all these particular
Right.
temples. So which one do you pick? Well, we picked the oldest one that was in the town. And then from there, we went to a river cruise on the Mekong Delta. It took us over I think it was over 4 hours to go there and back. We went to visit these caves.
Oh, okay.
Within these caves, they stored all these Buddhist statues, and there were thousands upon thousands of them in this cave. They protected them, and this is where they hid them because of the various wars that occurred in Laos.
Really?
So, because remember in the Vietnam War, the American bombers bombed Laos pretty significantly.
Right.
They did a heck of a job in bombing that country, because this was the country that was being utilized to transport the Vietnamese from the north. Were passing things down to the South Vietnam to beat the South Vietnam and the Americans that were trying to stay off the North Vietnamese coming down to the south. Along the way, we visited a village, and that was kind of neat there because they had made rice wine. I have 2 bottles that are on the table there. We bought a bottle of red wine and white wine, and it was something like about $5 only. And they had distilled there. They were making it, and it tasted pretty good.
You were making it right there.
Making it right there. It's about 13 to 14% volume by alcohol, so it's pretty potent stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
sounds like.
about the same thing we have here in the United States. And so we visited the caves there, and we came back, and then we had an opportunity to cross a bamboo bridge which crossed the Mekong Delta. It cost us
Okay.
I think it was like 5,000 kip, which is about 65 cents. So we walked across it and came back.
Right.
And normally it's up right now because it's the dry season.
Uh-huh.
During the monsoon season, we take that bridge down because it'll be flooded out. So it's a
Right.
bamboo bridge, and for people to cross from one side of the river to the other. So that was kind of a neat thing to walk across that and visit the other side and come back again. It took about maybe 15 minutes. It was pretty neat.
So what was the country on the other side?
It's still Laos.
Still Laos.
Laos, yeah.
Okay.
Just the Mekong River was just separating the part of the country there
Okay.
where we visit there. Along with that, within the countryside, I went to 2 waterfalls. The first one was what they call the Tad Kung Sea Waterfall. It's a 7-tiered waterfall. It's just absolutely
Wow.
beautiful. It's back in about 18 miles from the city. So we visited that, and it was really pretty. And we walked pretty well all the way to the top. We didn't get to the very top. We saw most of the falls that was cascading down the hillside. And then we went to the night market that evening, and the night market has everything you want to buy is available.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is where we ate every night, is to eat the soup there.
All right.
Okay.
Jim, we got to take just a quick break right here. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk some more about this fantastic trip that you got going here.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll be
Okay.
back in just a couple of minutes.
Prescription drug abuse is a national epidemic. The new in way to obtain drugs is through parents' or grandparents' medicine chests. Removing prescriptions from your cabinet is the best way to keep drugs out of the hands of our young people. We've got to work together to protect our teens, our seniors, and our environment. Clean out your medicine cabinet today. Please participate in Operation Medicine Cabinet and drop off your unwanted or expired prescriptions at one of our law enforcement drop-off sites in Oakland County. We can't ignore this situation anymore.
Welcome back to Active Living. We're back with Jim Roback, our worldwide traveler, and we're going to continue with a little bit more on Laos. So Jim, you went through the first half here. We talked a little bit about the countryside. Now what are you doing in the rest of your trip here?
Now we're going to the cities, like a big city here. Now the thing is, we went to Luang Prabang, but we had planned to go to the capital. It was another 400 miles.
Oh,
and to travel that distance and try to get back, it was just not in the sights. We wanted to also see the Plain of Jars, which had these large jars, earthen jars, but apparently a couple of things there. Again, it was too far to go. It was about another 300 miles and another 150 miles to the capital, so we decided not to do it, and unfortunately the American bombers bombed that Plain of Jars, which didn't really help matters. So they had three sites, but it was not as good as it was in the past, so we decided not to do it. So we stayed in Luang Prabang and then headed back north again.
Did they use Agent Orange up there at all?
No, not there.
Okay.
No, it was mostly in Vietnam that they used the Agent Orange. From the waterfall, I mentioned the 7-tiered waterfall, we went to another waterfall called the Sea Waterfall, and this is where you can ride an elephant if you want, and also we did some zip lining there.
Oh, really?
It's kind of neat, yeah. So it took us a little over 2 hours to do. We had to climb up a long way to get to the very top. Then we kind of traversed the jungle there and came down. It was pretty neat. It was almost like being in Costa Rica.
Really?
So it was a real good thing. It was something like, I'm trying to remember, about $35 for it. So it wasn't that bad.
Okay.
So it's pretty decent. So at the night market, just I mentioned earlier, we bought some things like, for example, we bought these little, they call it tea here, and very inexpensive. There's different kind of teas. There's lemongrass, and they had orange, and they had black tea and all this stuff. So we bought some of these for gifts that we purchased in the night market. That was kind of neat there. We bought, again, the shot glasses, which I bring down to the various people within Lake Orion here. So I bought these particular ones here. They were like $2.50 for 2 of them, which is much cheaper than Iceland, which is around $7 in Iceland. So it was much more expensive in Iceland and in Laos. It's pretty inexpensive there.
Well, you make it kind of a tradition to bring back shot glasses
everywhere you go,
we bring
back
right?
for the women that asked me to bring them back. About 3 or 4 women who wanted, so I
is that right?
Back. Yeah, I didn't find any thimbles this time, so unfortunately. So, but found some shot glasses at the night market. Also, after we did the 2 waterfalls, the next day we visited the Royal Palace. And the Royal Palace is where Laos was ruled by a king until 1975.
Really?
After 1975, the communists took over, and after the Vietnam War and such, so they have no king there now. But interesting there that the U.S. government gave the king some nice gifts, and one of the major gifts they gave him was 3 new cars, 2 1961 Lincolns and an Edsel. And they're housed on the grounds there. We went to see them. You'll see pictures we'll have on here.
An Edsel car?
An Edsel car and 2 Lincolns.
Really?
And they were stored in this garage. They're all white, kind of a pale white, like a cream color.
Right.
But pretty good shape, So they don't use them anymore, just there for the museum currently today. And within the museum, there was various presidents that gave gifts to the king. It was like Nixon and I don't know if Clinton, I think it was there. Maybe Clinton came later on, but Nixon and Johnson and those, they have gifts there to show which president gave them gifts. It was all displayed there, very, very nicely displayed there. And they had the temples on there, which was on the Royal Palace grounds there. And then we walked up about 350 steps to go up to the stupa, which you could overlook the whole city of Luang Prabang. So it's kind of neat.
Now, Luang Prabang, how large a city is that, Jim?
Well, I said about 250,000 people. So it's a pretty good sized city. It's very well populated, nice and clean. A lot of hotels there for sure, and we stayed there. I think it was like again $15 a night, so it's kind of neat.
Okay.
We're centrally located, so it's very good to walk down to the night village, get some food, like you say, to drink the beer and have our dinner every night. And they had a nice market there. We bought dumplings. I think I bought like 12 dumplings for about $2, I think it was. They have a place where you can get any kind of food you want. Anything you want, you can get. It was right in the same market area there. Interesting too also is that in the various parts of Laos, at 7 o'clock every morning they had these monks. They go into town and they take their bowls and people will give them food.
Oh, really?
Yeah, every morning they go at 7 o'clock and they gather food from all who want to give people. The people give the monks the food, rice and different things. And one of the nasty things about sometimes the vendors will sell nasty food to the people to give to the monks and they get sick on it.
Oh, geez.
But that's sad, unfortunately, they do that. But every morning at 7 o'clock they do this ritual. No matter what city you go to, these monks that are dressed in orange, they go and ask for food. And they go in single file.
Really?
And as they pass a particular person will put food in each one of the little trays there. And then they got a bag man which takes the rest, takes the food, put in a bigger bag, so as they collect it. So that's their food for the whole day.
Really?
So that's how they actually keep themselves fed, I guess, at this time here.
Oh.
So these are alms, and like I say, they do it every morning. Then after we left, after doing all this in Luang Prabang, we headed back north again. Again, going back over the dusty roads, back over the mountain pass. We went to a village called Namtar, what they call Lawn Namtar. And this is where we did some nice things there. We did a whitewater rafting.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was kind of neat. It was only a class 1, but it was nice. It was a nice, easy canoe, or actually a water rafting down the river, because we had people who had never done it before. Because we brought these people that lived in Laos, and then my traveling partner's mother, and so they haven't done it before. So it was nice and quiet for them. So it worked out pretty good.
Right.
Halfway down the river, we had lunch. They put out these palm leaves they cut from the jungle, and they laid out some food for us, some sticky rice and some food, and some fish and everything else. It was pretty good, and the pork and such. So it was kind of neat there. And then the next day after that, we went on a jungle trek. So this took us over 8 hours, and again, they took us back to this village, and we had to cross the river one by one in a kayak. So once we did that, we had to climb up straight up this particular ridge, and it was difficult, let me tell you. And it took about, again, 7 hours to do the whole trip.
Really?
Halfway up the, well, when we got to the ridge, they cooked us dinner, or I'm sorry, not dinner, but lunch. Again, we had the fish, the pork, and everything else, and they did a good job. In fact, the fellow carved out a spoon out of one of the palm trees there. They carved this little spoon that you could eat there. So it's pretty ingenious that he was able to make this. And so I brought one back, and it's pretty unique that they can do this, and they're very innovative, these people, I can tell you that.
What kind of tree was that?
A palm tree.
Okay.
Yeah, so they just cut off a big hunk of the wood, and then they carve it out, and it makes it really nice. So the jungle tour was kind of interesting, a lot of bamboo, and what they did is they...
How about animals? Did you see a...
No, the only thing we saw was a rhinoceros beetle. That's the only thing we saw. It was about pretty good size, about the size of this, about half the size of this box right here.
It's a beetle?
Yeah, it was a big beetle. And we saw one of these in Costa Rica. It was in the banana plantation.
Okay.
The one in Costa Rica was bigger than the one we saw here. So we stuck them back in the hole because as we were traveling through the jungle, they were collecting food that we would serve for lunch. So some of the women who lived in Laos, they were doing this by the name of Tan. She knew every kind of thing you can eat, and plus also some herbal type of things you can use for healing.
Right.
So she did collect some of this stuff. So they were out there in the jungle whacking them with their machetes there and collecting this stuff as we were going through the jungle there.
There's no problems with cutting stuff down?
No, they grow so darn fast in there, you know, so there's no issue there. It's kind of interesting. As we got through the jungle, we came down the other side of the mountain there, and we ran into this one fellow. He had a beautiful piece of property there. I don't know how many he had, but he had a house there. He was the only one there, and he had about 20 goats there that were roaming all over as we were walking through his house there. So it was kind of interesting we were doing that. So, but he was very nice and worked out real well. As we got to Namtar also, there's a lot of Aka villagers that sell a lot of things. And one of the things I bought here, that they pester you all while you're eating lunch and whatever, dinner and everything else. And I bought this little bag here. I think it was like about $2, and they would want to sell you a bunch of these with bracelets and that. One day they had 13 bracelets on the table there, plus a couple of other things. She only wanted like $3 for them.
Is that right?
So I said, no. I mean, they just keep after you all the time, you know, to buy some. So, and the sad thing about that, when they're done selling it at night, they just sleep behind the market, which is there, you know, again, one of these markets they have all the time. And they sleep there, and they wait the next morning. They're up at 7 o'clock, and they're out there.
Right, out there again.
Out there again, yeah. It's really unfortunate, but that's the only way they can make a living, you know, unfortunately. And one thing that's kind of unusual there was the women. They look like 80 years old, but they're only about 50 because they work so hard. They carry all the rice. The men don't do the heavy lifting. The women do all the heavy lifting.
Really?
Yeah, and they got these baskets they carry this across their forehead, and they got this, like a wood thing on their shoulder here. It helps them to carry this stuff, and it's just amazing. Look, they're so short, you know, and just, but you know, they age real fast, unfortunately. They're all really tanned and everything else. It's really something. And continuing on, after we did these couple of things in Namtar there, that we went to a cave. They're outside the town. They're about 20 miles, and it's almost like the Mammoth Caves in Kentucky. Oh yeah. Same thing. They had many, many miles of this cave. We've probably walked maybe 3 or 4 miles within the cave. We had little headlights on, little flashlights, so we walked through there and took pictures of the bats that were on top of the ceiling there. They're pretty good-sized bats. Yeah. Yeah. Got a couple pictures of that, which was kind of interesting. So that was a kind of an interesting thing to visit there. Let's see here. So that pretty well covers Laos. A couple of things there yet was the fact that the last day that was there basically is that we went and had to see the people catching fish.
Okay.
And what it was here, this guy had like a backpack, and he had I think it was a 12-volt battery pack in his backpack here.
Right.
And he had these 2 bamboo poles, and they had wires running down these poles. And what they would do is they go in the water, and where they think they see fish, they'll put it in the water and they'll stun the fish. A couple other guys will pick up the fish,
right,
and then put it in the basket. And this is what they're going to have for dinner that evening. So
it was fresh right out of the water.
Fresh out of the water. And one thing interesting about that, they do not gut the fish. They just put them on these reeds they take from the jungle. They put about 5 or 6 of them on these reeds. They stick a stick right through them, so when they cook it, the fish doesn't, flop over like this. So it stays kind of flat, so they can cook it real well. So they cook this over the fire along with some more pork, and also they make papaya salad, which is kind of a little acidy, but it tasted pretty good. And I can only eat a little bit of that, so that's the thing I had that evening there. Again, I will not eat the fish because I just wasn't up to it that particular day. So,
okay.
But like I say, all the guts and everything are in the fish, but it's okay.
You work around that part, right?
You have to work around, just pick up the flesh there, and that works out pretty good there. So
yeah, it was the same way when I went to Japan. We got whole fish, and you had to pick around to find the meat.
Bones and everything. But they'll eat the eyeballs and everything. I mean, it's something was a tradition. I know when I had the Japanese come here that it was honorable to give you the opportunity to eat the fish eyes, but
really
something I couldn't do. No, it wasn't. But they say that's a delicacy. It's an honor to get the eyeballs.
Juicy, Jim. Juicy.
Must be. It might be like oysters, which I don't.
Yeah,
I'm not too
I'll
fond
pass
of either,
on that.
so I'll pass on that also. So. So that was about the major part of the trip. Once again, it's a good country to visit, a lot of scenery. It's very backward, unfortunately.
Sounds like it's a very poor country.
It's very, very poor. It's probably worse than, probably the worst I've ever seen. Thailand was good, Cambodia was good, Vietnam was good. It seemed to be a lot of commerce, but they're landlocked, unfortunately, because all the countries have access to the sea.
They don't have access.
They have no access. Only the Mekong River runs through the whole country.
Okay.
But again, it's very rugged, very pretty, and it's worthwhile to see. But it's once in a lifetime, just like, say, climbing Kilimanjaro. You would do it once, but
you
would
do
you
it
go
once.
back? Don't think you would go back. So would be too interested in going to Africa and visit villages where you got people that are tribes there, because it's sad. I mean, when you see people who are naked, they have very little to eat, and everything they survive on what they raise, and that's what they do. They got the chickens and the pigs are running all around, so when you go in there, the one thing that was really, I think, detestable was the amount of dogs there. Everywhere there was dogs. I mean, if anything that really was depressing was dogs all over the place. You go to the villages, if you're trying to eat, they have dogs, they're all around the place, and it was just too many.
Do they eat them?
I don't know what they do, but there was too many of them for my...
you might have had some you didn't even realize.
Could have been. Could have been, but it was something else. That was the only negative that I could say was that.
Yeah,
it's very bad. And like I say, the poorness of the country itself.
Right.
And we did have a chance to visit up to the Chinese border, but you couldn't cross into the Chinese area because it was restricted in the area that we were in up in Maan Singh. That was the only place we could get into China that was real close.
Right.
We couldn't visit there. So.
So you've been traveling all over the world. What's your next adventure, or have you figured that out yet?
Yes, we have. We are going to go to South America. We plan to go to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, and then go visit the Easter Islands where all those monolithic type of statues are.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a flight that comes from Chile, from Santiago to Easter Island.
Wow.
And that's going to be quite a trip there.
So when are you planning on doing this trip, Jim?
This is March.
Okay.
This is in March. And
so you only got another month or so.
A couple months, and then we head out again for another trip, and then we'll see from there what we'll do. So, but that's the next one for 2015.
Well, you should be down in Brazil for the Carnival,
It will be after we get there.
Oh, okay.
It happens in February, I understand. And I think, was it Doug who was going down there? He was going to see it from our breakfast club?
Yeah, I think so.
He was going to go down. He's going to be at the festival. So, but I've been there where I've seen the festival in the small towns when I was working for Lear that I saw something.
Okay.
So it was kind of neat. The dress and the music and all that was very, very nice.
I bet it was great.
It was. That it was.
Well, Jim, we want to thank you for coming back on an Active Living show. And certainly you're a good example of active living for a senior, for sure. You're traveling all over the world. Thank you very much for joining us today. And we're looking forward to your next trip.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it very much. We've got to catch you on your trip that you went on the Danube. We've got to get you on the program.
Well, someday I'll put it together.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Jim. Bye now. Thanks for joining us, folks. We'll be back hopefully after